Welcome back to Changed. I'm Megan Galloway and I am your host, and this is the podcast where we talk all about moments that change us. And if you're going through a big change yourself right now, this episode is for you. I'm so excited to be here today. I am in New York City. I am here at the Mastercard offices with an incredible human being. His name is Jorge Arbesú. He is from Panama originally.
Yep.
And I'm so excited for our conversation today. To give a little bit of the background about Jorge, you are from Panama originally. Now you live here in New York.
Yeah.
You have 2 kids.
Yes.
4 and 8, right?
Yeah, you got it.
Yes. And you're a triathlete and an ultra marathon runner. You met your wife during triathlon as well.
Yes, at the pool, which she didn't love because she was wearing, the swimmer hat and everything.
Oh, yeah.
She was like, you met me at my least compelling. And even then, I thought she was beautiful, of course. So it was good.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yes. And now you're the chief of staff to the CEO here at Mastercard. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Been doing that for 15 months now. And it's really cool shadowing someone that has such a very important job and building a relationship with them is quite frankly one of the most exciting and interesting things that I've done in my career. So yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
That sounds amazing. Well, thank you for being here with me.
Sure.
I would love, will you tell a little bit of your story? Like, who are you and how did you get to where you're at right now?
That's a bit of a complicated question, but let me start by saying welcome to Mastercard.
Thank you.
I'm very happy that you're here. Second thing is, I don't know if you know this, but I was a little bit reluctant to do this, mostly because I don't feel like I'm at a stage in my career where I can put myself up as an example. But you were kind to talk to me. We had a conversation prior to this, and I started to get to know you. We had children around the same age. You had a very clear explanation and why as to what pursued you to do this podcast. And I could relate to you, and you were just a good person. So I said, all right, great, I'm gonna have a good conversation with a good human being that has the right intentions. And then I found a hack, which is I'll talk a lot about other people that have helped me get here. So I don't talk that much about myself. But with that said, let me tell you about me. As you said, I'm Panamanian, I'm 41, been married for, let me get this right, I don't want to get in trouble, 11 years, it'll be 12 next month. Long story short, was born in Panama, moved to Miami because in the 80s, it was in vogue for Latin American countries to have a dictator. So we had to do that. Then eventually moved back to Panama again. That's where I did all my teenage years, my first job. Then worked in a collection agency at some point, which took me to Boston in Lawrence, Massachusetts. Hi to everyone from Lawrence, Massachusetts. So I lived there for like a year and a half. That was my first baseball game at Fenway in 2004. So I take credit for them winning the World Series in 2004, breaking the course of Bambino, because of course it's all me. And after that, came back to Panama, worked at Citibank for a while, and then in 2015, got hired at Mastercard to run their business there. And then from there, moved to Boston again, Miami, and now New York. So it's been fun.
You've been all over, and you have lived internationally as well, yeah?
Yeah, of course. Lived in Colombia for a little bit too, and then just traveling all over the world as part of the gig. So yeah, it makes it entertaining.
Yeah, that's incredible. The main question of this podcast is, what is the moment that has changed you most as a person? And I'm gonna actually not allow you to cop out and use somebody else's moment. You have to use a moment of your own.
Can I cheat and say 2?
Okay, deal.
Okay.
I'll allow it.
Cool. So the first one is obviously getting married. I was watching a YouTube short with Emma Stone. She just did a podcast. And one of the shorts was just explaining how if she were married 2 years before the time that she's in right now, I think the word she used it would have been carnage. And because she didn't know who she was. And as I was listening to that, I understood where she was coming from. But my first reaction was, oh, but you're missing the fun part. And the fun part with me spending this time with my wife these last 12 years almost, been together for a little bit longer than that, is we've grown up together. And she's molded me into the person that I am today. When I was, I don't know, the fourth, fifth year of our marriage was probably the hardest one. And that's when you become a parent. You get a role that you're not used to getting, you know, or having, because you're father and she's a mother. You didn't know that side of her before. And then you revert to your old tricks. Struggled a little bit significantly financially when I was growing up. So pushing hard, being individualistic, managing everything, being efficient was the way I was used to running life. But my wife grew up in a different environment. We were in a different environment. So my old tricks weren't useful. They were actually destructive to my family life at the time. And I could have stuck to my old ways and not be with her, or I could have listened to her plea, what she had to teach me, and then we could grow together. And that's a big life changer. The other part is definitely, I can still sense it and see it, is walking into the hospital bed, listening to the sound of the hospital machines, touching my mother's calloused feet, and walking over, touching her head, and making a lifelong promise right after she died, which is a big driver of my life. So my mother's death at 23 and my marriage are definitely the two most formative experiences in my life.
Thank you for sharing.
Sure.
That's beautiful. Do you mind if I ask, like, what was the promise that you made to yourself when you were saying goodbye to your mother?
So this has a backstory. My mother was amazing, right? She was very religious growing up. So I grew up with Bible stories and Bible discipline. So she was very strict, mother of two. But I remember one day, might have been 17 or 18 or something. And my mom said something along the lines of, my life is worthless. I had all this talent, and I just couldn't put it to use. And now all of my key relationships are broken. I had done just something bad because, again, I was 17. And at the moment, that didn't dawn on me. I was a 17-year-old kid. When she passed away at 23, the promise was making sure that everyone that got to know me understood that the reason I was the person I am and most of the good things and achievements that I have in my life are thanks to her and driven by her and to honor her. And that was the promise. So right now, sitting here is actually fulfilling that promise.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you next, is how do you see that moment with your mom still influencing your life today, many years later?
I think about that every day. Another story. I was running through Boston, when I lived in Boston. Miami, sorry. When we had moved to Miami, around Brickell Avenue. And I'm listening to this podcast from Malcolm Gladwell. And there's nothing deep in the conversation. He's talking about French fries and like hyaluronic acid, oil relative to, I forget the other type of oil that French fries were cooked before, whatever. And as he's finishing the podcast, he's saying that he was interviewing this doctor whose father had been the researcher that had turned off like butter, people from using butter into using margarine. He had conducted this massive study in Minnesota in I think it was 60s or 70s. And research was starting to come up in the early 2010s that turns out that margarine's even worse than butter. So we should actually go back to butter. And I'm listening to this, it's innocuous, and he says the person that had to prove that research calls this scientist's son, the scientist had died, and said, hey, can I get access to the study? Because I think the study that I have with the study that your father made can give me the actual conclusive evidence. And the guy said, sure. So he drove back, I think he was living in Michigan, I'm not entirely sure where, drove back and forth an hour and a half, spent hours researching his father's papers to bring it back. And then he said, you know, you've done all this work to actually prove your father's work wrong. For life's work wrong for what? Why are you doing this? And the guy's perspective was, I am not honoring my father's belief because he didn't believe in margarine. I'm honoring his values, which are the search for truth. And then through that, I understood he poses a question, what is a child's obligation to its parent? And then that's to honor their beliefs, not to honor their beliefs because we're different people, but to honor their values. So I think about my mother's values all the time. And that's why I reflect on values of hard work, being a good parent, being a good husband. My mom would always tell me, you don't take someone out of their house for them to live a lesser life than what they're used to. That doesn't mean you won't struggle, but it puts a lot of burden on responsibility. My mother always said, you have to treat your spouse, and I know this might have some gender association, but it doesn't matter. Like if she was a princess, and make sure that, my wife is a warrior princess, but I'll digress on that one. But upholding all of those family values that my mother gave me, that's what I think about all the time, and hopefully honor her every day.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I think that one of the things that I'm hearing you talk about as well is it's like, especially when you were talking about your wife and like the ways in which you've changed alongside your wife, which is beautiful. And I think that's like one of the best parts of marriage.
Yeah.
I've also been married for 11 years.
Oh, nice.
And, I think that's one of the best parts about being married and like, especially having long-term relationships with someone is that you get all of these different chapters in your life together and you become a new person all the time. And I think the healthiest marriages are the ones, and again, I'm biased because this is how we treat our marriage, but like, I'm grateful that we both have the same perspective that like every chapter in life, we're going to become new people. And so we're constantly learning this next version of ourselves. But I don't think that's just true about like being with somebody. I also think that's true about ourselves. And one of the things that I hear from you too is that you're constantly like iterating and growing, but you have this like deep root of the values that your mom instilled in you.
Yeah.
And so it's like you have this place that keeps you grounded and centered, but then from there you're willing to make changes when you need to make changes. How do you think that's helped you in your career?
So 2 ways. My mother, this bedtime like Bible stories, she would call me Joseph a ton. Obviously not my name. She would say, hey, you're Joseph to me. And for those of you who don't know the Bible stories as much, it's pretty much he's the youngest son. He's his father's favorite, or people believe he is. And his brothers become jealous of him, and they sell them to slave owners. He becomes a slave. And throughout his life, he struggles. He goes to prison, gets out of prison, works up with a big business person there, and then there's a confusion with his wife. His business person's wife accuses Joseph of wrongdoing. He goes back to prison, and then he starts interpreting dreams, and that's how he gets to the Pharaoh and becomes the second hand of the Pharaoh, right? So my mother instilling that identity in me, it makes me a little bit delusional, of course, that I can accomplish anything. But it's a healthy delusion because in the pursuit of your dreams, there's going to be a ton of struggle, and not everything's going to go the way you want it to. And then you have to be comfortable and ready to be able to adjust and grow. And then as you start to apply those things as a leader, as you understand people as well, it's progress is not a straight line. It surely wasn't for Joseph, right? So that's in part how I think about life. You think of a boxer, you have your manager or your trainer in the corner, but you're the one that actually has to go out there and fight the fight and get hit in the face, in the body, take the blows, and come back. But your trainer's always there in your corner when you have to come back. Mm-hmm. And that's the support I had from my mother that I have today from my wife, is someone that's consistently in my corner to help me out. And it doesn't matter what the crowd says. The crowd could boo you, the person's in your corner. The crowd could cheer you, the person's in your corner. And just having that foundation is so critical, and I think it translates into strong relationships.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing that I'm hearing you talk about as well is it makes it feel almost like safer for you to go experiment and try new things 100%. And fail, because you know that person is always there, which is, a beautiful thing to have, whether that's a spouse or whether that's a friend for somebody that's listening that, maybe isn't in a partnership with somebody, or a parent for them. Like, I do think that there are those people in your life that you feel like, they love you no matter what, and they love you for you, not your worthiness as, a business person or for the things that you're achieving, but just for who you are. And I think in today's society where achievement is built in so much to how we operate on our day-to-day, like we spend most of our time at work, right?
Yeah.
I think that it's easy to associate so much of our self-worth and our identity with our careers and where we're going and what we're achieving. But it sounds like you're kind of like hijacking that a little bit and like cheating that by also still having this like foundation that's like, even if the rest of that all disappeared, I would still have what's most core and important to me.
Oh, I would, yes, 100%. I joke with Nicole, that's my wife, all the time that I have, like, I don't really care what people think about me as much, but I usually have these, I don't know, it's somewhere between 5 or 10 folks whose opinion I value tremendously. And it's usually those people that have given me that sense of security that they're going to love me and support me no matter what. And at one point someone told me, hey, where did you get this self-confidence and reassurance that you sort of live life with? And I think about it a lot as a parent, because that's what I want to leave my kids. So that reassurance that someone is there to pick you up when you fall, I mean, you feel emboldened and you can take risks and you can move. The story I didn't tell you was I was in Panama. Doesn't sound like a big job from New York, but I was like the country manager for Mastercard. I was 31, I think, at the time. I was meeting with CEOs of banks in the country, sort of way ahead of my age group. And all of a sudden, I decide I want to apply to a second graduate school degree. I now have my wife is pregnant with, she's like 8 months pregnant or something. And I am going to pick up the family, move them to Boston to live on a student budget and get over $200,000 in debt. And I don't come from means. And I'm making good money. And a lot of my friends said, are you insane? What are you doing? And it was probably a little bit crazy, but it was something I had to do. It's a combination of a bunch of things. It's in my head what Joseph would have done. I knew that if I moved to Boston and I failed, someone was going to pick me up back home in some way, shape, or form. So I think me risking certain things and enjoying life and living life, I love to win, don't take me the wrong way, but just me going through that journey is how I think I honor the effort and the support that many of the people back home and today have given me.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to look at it, because I think for a lot of people it's hard to ask for help.
Yep.
And I like the framing of you're honoring people when you do take their help, and you're using that to go do the things that, like, the whole reason why they helped you is because they care about you and they want you to see you succeed.
And most people will help you. People want to help.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a disservice not to say, hey, I need support here. And then you build that trust, right? It's whenever they help you out, you make sure that you're there for them as well. They see the push, they see the work, and it becomes satisfactory for them. I had another former boss of mine who now works with Mastercard, was my boss when I was at Citi. We became very close friends. He went to my wedding and everything. So we're at this event at Mastercard. We had this meeting I was telling you about off camera, the leadership meeting. And I was on stage. I wasn't saying anything too important, but I came down and the guy was so emotional, and he said, "Hey, this is the moment when the student surpasses the teacher," which I don't believe, but it was nice of him to say. But what I'm trying to say is there are few moments in life that are so fulfilling. And when you see someone that you've helped continue to grow and progress. So people are willing to do it, and we should be willing to help as well to contribute into people's lives. There's nothing better as a human being, I think.
Yeah, it's so fulfilling. I mean, that's one of the most beautiful parts of parenting too, right? Is like watching your kids, like, because it's to your point about like a boxer standing in the ring, right? Like when you're helping somebody, when you're in their corner, you can only do so much for them, and the rest of it is outside of your control, right? And then they are in the driver's seat. They are the ones that get to either succeed or fail, or somewhere in the middle of that realm, right? And there's a certain point where it's so fulfilling to watch them find their own way, even when it's not succeeding every time and exactly how you would think it is. But for them, watching them like grow and learn and become more of the person that they're going to be, or like step more into their potential, like that's, I think, one of the best things about being a parent, but also being a leader of people, right? Yeah. And seeing people's paths unfold. It's beautiful. It's like such a cool human experience. It makes you feel connected in a different way.
It does. I think it's the reason why, one of the main reasons why we're alive. And it becomes silly. I mean, you're a parent as well, little kids, like their accomplishments aren't that great. Like they're small, right? Like whether it's a first step, or they write their first story, or their first drawing. Like one of the other things that my mother used to do, she would like keep the notes and drawings that I would make for her. And then when she passed away, I was going through the whole things. Just seeing that she kept that was so damn meaningful for me. And she did the same for my brother and everything else. So I try to do that for my boys. But the cool thing is, now I came back from this, again, the conference, and they gave us like baseball cards, right? So I have like my Mets thing, and I'm supposedly a baseball player. And I bring it back, and my son just takes it in, and he puts it in his backpack, and he's like, "This is mine, I'm gonna keep it forever." Aww. You know, so we start to make those connections as well, where when it becomes like this virtuous cycle, as you help someone and help them progress, and again, not in a straight line, they'll help you, and then it becomes this fulfilling part of life that, and again, I believe is the reason we're here for.
Yeah. So I heard you talk a lot in some of this about risk-taking and like being willing to put yourself out there, and maybe you don't know you're going to succeed, but you're just going to like try it anyway, like moving to Boston. We have a lot of similarities, by the way. When but I was on the other side of it. When I was getting my MBA, I was very pregnant. I graduated 2 weeks before my first was born.
Oh my God.
And I was working full time. It's like during that time too. We have a lot of similarities. It's kind of funny. I love that. But yeah, you're in this moment. You move to Boston. You don't know how everything's going to go.
Yeah.
Like, what is it that about like taking those risks? Like, if someone is in that position themselves and they're like, I don't know whether I should apply for this new job or take this promotion or quit my job entirely and go pursue this other career path that I've always wanted to do. Like, what's the thing that you think enables someone to like take a step into the unknown?
So there's a couple of things. One is, I'm Panamanian, so I have to get a Spanish phrase in. My best friend always tells me, la vida es para vivirla, which is life is there to be lived, to be enjoyed. And everyone finds enjoyment in different ways. Risk-taking is one for me. That's why I did triathlon, and that's why I did endurance sports and continue to do it, because it's the thrill of the adventure. So that's one of the parts of it. Is we should try to enjoy life, because it's kind of all we have. There's nothing else, right? Like, anything else you can recover from. But life and death are the only sort of definite things in our life. So having that as in the back of my head. The second thing is, have a list of people that have helped me in different ways throughout my lifetime. I owe it to them. I owe it to them to take risks and to be able to fulfill the promise that they saw in me. It's a huge debt of gratitude. One of them is Tia Delia. And what Tia Delia did, she was my mother's hairdresser when we were young. And I was middle class before I was 10, or from 0 to 10. And then we went through this like very, very bad financial patch. And the Adelia went from being my mother's hairdresser to her friend. And this woman was so kind. Once a month, she would come home and make groceries and get us all the groceries and get us clothes. And she would bring KFC for me and my brother, to plug for KFC. And she would bring this like little spark of joy in her life. And she was a hairdresser. How much money could she be making? She had children of her own. And she would still do that. Like, the way I see life, I would be an asshole if I didn't try hard, and if I didn't push forward, and if I didn't try to honor everything that they did for me and my family and my brother and my mother. So that's, to me, I think we all can look back at our lives and have people that we're very grateful for. Like, you've had a baby, right? If you don't take care of a baby, the baby dies very quickly.
Yeah.
Very quickly, right? So someone took care of you. Someone did something for you. I think taking risks and maximizing what your life can be is a pretty strong footing to stand on. And then you always need, like, I would say, framing mechanisms. Going back to the 5 or 10 people that I hold, whose opinions I hold dear to, I ask a lot of questions. I ask a ton of advice. You and I have talked a little bit. We talked before. And I remember you said, it feels like you're interviewing me. Because I enjoy asking questions, so I'm holding back to not ask questions now. But the point is, having that kind of personal board of directors, not to tell you consistently not to do things. Sometimes you have to go against the advice you get, but you still have to get the advice. And they'll save you from very, very stupid decisions. My wife was one of them. The first job opportunity I got outside of Panama was going to Guatemala. And my life would have been different if I went to Guatemala. I held a little bit, went to Mastercard, and the rest is history, right? So teaching someone that has such a large risk appetite, teaching them patience and not to jump at the first thing that comes at you is something that people that surround you will be able to help you with. So yeah, that's it.
Well, and one of the things that I love that I'm hearing you say as well is, it's almost, I think for a lot of people, the status quo is like our safe space. Like, that's where we default to, right? Like, I don't want to go get a new job because this is safe right now, right? Like, I'm miserable in my job maybe, but like, I want to stay here because I know what it is and I know that it's safe.
Yeah.
So that's like my default.
Yeah.
What I hear about your perspective is like, your default is, I'm going to live in the risk. Like, the risk is where life is lived.
Yeah.
And I do think there's something really interesting about that shift that I think, to your point about, I think that every strength can turn into a shadow if it's overplayed. So your strength of risk taking, it sounds like you found good, like almost like a helpful way to set a boundary around over-indexing on it, which is great with your board of directors. And then for anybody that's listening to this that's maybe like wanting to take more risks in life and defaulting to the status quo, there's something I think to shift in your brain about like, what if my day-to-day reaction was to honor all these people before me? What if I just go for it and try something different? And that's I don't fall back on, well, this is just how it is. Or like we hear people say that all the time, right? Like, it's just how it is. This is just, it is what it is. What if the answer is like, what could this be? And it's just always this question of pushing forward, not just staying where we're at.
Yeah. Well, what if my dream comes true? What if I was what I was expecting actually comes to reality? That's a mindset shift. And then the other thing is, you have to be comfortable losing, right? It's, what if I take this, I change jobs, and again, like if you're a parent, I'm not advocating for you to quit your job and have nothing and try to figure out that financially. I've come from places where there's financial need and it's not fun, but if you take the leap, what's the worst that can happen other than your ego getting hurt? Other than you feeling like, I made a bad decision. Going back to having people that love you and support you in your corner, they're still gonna love you. And my mother wouldn't love me any less if I was in Panama still or now that I'm in New York. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Same with my brother. Like I'll pick up the phone and he'll answer every time. And if he doesn't, he'll call me back in 5 minutes. That doesn't change if I'm here, if I'm in Guatemala, it doesn't matter. So what's the real consequence of failure? I don't think there is any. And as you fail more, that's what I love about sports. Like my son is getting used to getting beat up.
Yeah.
Pretty badly. Like
Making
he's a catcher,
mistakes
making mistakes, and they steal bases, and sometimes he gets a pass ball and they steal home, and he feels like the team lost because of him. And at the end of the day, he comes out and nothing's changed. He's still Santi, he's still a nice kid, his parents love him. So I think that risk-taking aspect of it is losing the fear. Fear's a good emotion, but it's also a limiting emotion.
Yeah.
Just being afraid of failure can be good, but it can also limit you. There's nothing that happens if you fail. Your ego gets hurt and you'll be back up. It's all good.
Well, and I do think exactly like what you're saying. So I'm a recovering perfectionist.
Okay.
I'm the eldest daughter, right?
Yeah.
It makes sense. I'm A-type. And I think the more, having left corporate, my last job in corporate, I was the VP at a bank. And when I left that job and went into kind of startup land, I was on the executive team of a seed stage venture-backed startup for 2 years, and we failed all the time.
Yeah.
And at first I was so uncomfortable because I was so used to if there's a bar that says exceed expectations, I'm going to get to that bar. I know I can work hard enough to put myself around that level. If I my work ethic, I will just go for it. I feel like that's my strength, is that I'll just work really hard at something, right? Even if I'm not the best in the room. But then I got to startup land, and just because you put in the hard work doesn't mean that everything works for you.
Mm-hmm.
And you get really used to having to move really fast, not put in all of the best effort because there's no way to do everything at once.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you're failing all the time. And it's interesting because in the last 4 years since I've leapt off the corporate ladder and now gone this direction into, entrepreneurship, I think it's really interesting that the more that I've failed the last 4 years, the easier it's getting.
Yeah.
Even asking people to be on this podcast. I sent some requests to people and they said no.
Yeah.
And or they ghost me. But you know what? I'm really proud of myself for trying.
Yeah.
Even if they do say no. Because there's no way that you can get a conversation with an incredible person if you don't ask, So it's one of those things that I do think, to your point, it's if you're not used to that feeling, it feels really uncomfortable. And it's easy to succumb to it and be I don't want to feel that again.
Yeah.
But if you just notice it and you're okay, what is this trying to tell me? How do I just move through this feeling and get better at moving through this feeling faster and faster every time I fail? Then I think it just gets easier with time.
It does. I'll give you an example. I am very aware that I am 6'2", kind of a bigger guy, and if I'm scared, people will make fun of me if I were the opposite, more than if I were the opposite. But one of the things I'm really afraid of that I do all the time is I'm very afraid of flying. Terribly afraid of flying.
Oh my gosh, we have this in common.
So,
I get super bad flight anxiety.
But very, very bad. And I fly all the time. We go to Dubai, we go to Singapore, we go everywhere. And it's something that I have to do in order to become the person that I want to try to become. Again, it's being willing to do these things that you're afraid of that is really going to get you, I think, to the next level. I'll go back to my wife. My wife, she's now a professional photographer for family photography, and she's excellent. She's great at it, very talented. She had a nice corporate job. She worked in the beauty, let me get this right, it's beauty industry. It's not the fashion industry, beauty industry. And she was really good. She had a great career. When we were in Boston, she started taking photos, learned a ton, and always in the back of her mind, she wanted to come back to do that. And then one day she opened up the business again, started working on weekends, started without letting her job go, and then eventually transitioned to full-time being a photographer, right? But that has to be super scary because 15th and the 30th of the month comes in and there's no paycheck.
There's no guarantee.
Right? And you're taking photos and you're taking family photos and people get super emotional. Yeah, to your point, I think it's just being comfortable with it, and over time, you get used to enduring that rejection. I know it sounds like a joke and I said it earlier. The fact that a lot of girls said no when I asked her on a date when I was a kid, I think it helped me a ton, right? Because I wasn't this, I had like big braces. In Panama, we call them frenos de caballo. It was like horse braces. Like it was gigantic. I had huge glasses because I am myopic. And I had something else. Oh, I had a lot of acne. It wasn't good. And I was tall and lanky. But I was still confident. And I understand why they said no. I'm not saying they're mean. I would have said no if I was a girl myself. But getting used to that really helps you. So I think people need to expose themselves to rejection a little bit more. And not in a masochist way. Like I said, make sure you have your support system. But do it, and then, again, you're going to be fine. Your ego's hurt, but you're good.
You're going to keep going.
Yeah.
There's another chapter. That's writing itself, the more you experiment, it's easier to get to that next place.
Yeah.
So, well, I would love for us to move into the last section, which is the speed round. So just a couple of quick hitter questions.
I talk a lot, so I'm not sure if I can do speed round.
We'll see. We'll see how we go. All right. So the first question is, what is one thing you used to hate, but now you love it?
One thing I used to hate, but now I love, it's not going to be deep, Brussels sprouts.
Oh my gosh, you're not the first person on this season to say that.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that's amazing. I love it.
I freaking hated Brussels sprouts. When I was a kid, I would go to my grandmother's house, and she would serve us, in Spanish they call it coles de Bruselas. She would serve us, that was disgusting. And then one day, I'm at this restaurant, maybe, I don't know, like 10 years ago, and I'm tasting this thing, and I'm like, this is fantastic.
What is this?
What is this? And then someone's like, Brussels sprouts. I'm like, what? And now I absolutely love it. I actually look for it.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, Brussels sprouts.
That's so great. Is there a movie that you've watched or a book that you've read that's totally changed your perspective?
Yes. Again, not deep. Karate Kid.
Yes, I love it.
I think Mr. Miyagi is quite possibly the greatest character in the history of movies. And I've watched I have kids, I do sports, I have a busy job, but I've even done, I've watched Cobra Kai, I've watched Karate Kid Legends, everything. But
you're deep in the Karate Kid
universe. 100%, yes. But the one part I'm really hooked on right now is at the end of Karate Kid 3, like always, right? Daniel San's getting his butt kicked by this guy, and the whole plan of this bad guy in the movie is you have to score, I think it's like 3 points to win the tournament, and a point's a hit in the chest and face, whatever. But what this guy is doing is he's getting a point, and then he's doing an illegal hit, getting a point, illegal hit, getting a point. So he's pretty much beating him up in front of everybody, and they go into sudden death, and he just like beats him up again, and he falls down. And as he's in the ground, all beat up, he starts to say, I want to go home. I'm afraid. I don't want to do this anymore. I want to go home. And Mr. Miyagi comes in a very stern way. Again, being in your corner, right? He didn't sugarcoat things. And he said, I'm going to be a little bit dramatic. Hoi! Daniel-san, kind of matches his intensity and then brings him down. And then says, it's okay to lose to opponent. It's not okay to lose to fear. Mm-hmm. And that's what's on my head on that because of that movie over the last few days. And that's what I'm thinking about. It's what am I afraid of that's limiting me to do something that I want to do or that's meaningful. And then obviously eventually Daniel-san gets up and wins the tournament. But because it's a movie. But I love that. I love that. It's just not losing to your own limitations of fear. And Mr. Miyagi, he's the man.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Last question.
Sure.
If you could change one thing about our world right now, what would you change?
I'm not sure I would change anything. I have this genetic advantage, I guess, that my dad gave me this time around, and he's incredibly optimistic about everything. Just life is going to be grand. Everything's going to turn out okay. The downside is he's incredibly optimistic about everything, but sometimes lacks a plan. So that's how I've sort of implemented plans and people to bring me down my optimism cloud. But going back to your question, the reason I wouldn't change anything is because right now it feels like an anxious time. But if you look back in history, it is through those difficult moments that eventually leaders emerge, that people that look around and can't accept the conditions decide to act, where bravery and courage really rises up to the occasion. It's happened every time throughout human history. I think we need moments like these, and ultimately we'll be in a better place. So even though it might feel dark and not great, and maybe this is the silly optimism in me, I think eventually good prevails. And there's always going to be buckets of evil here and there, but eventually there's something about the human spirit that will make us go back to doing what we know in our hearts is good. And having grown a Christian myself and in the Western part of the world, I believe I had a monopoly on what I believed was good. And I've traveled throughout the world, pretty much every faith that I've encountered, every culture that I've encountered, we share similar values in the search for truth and good. Some of them might be more advanced than others in this current period of time. Before it wasn't that, and I'm sure it won't be in the future. But I'm a huge, huge believer that eventually people will rise, leaders will emerge, and will turn out to be better. So that's why I wouldn't change anything.
Just like in Karate Kid.
There you go.
Thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate you sharing your stories and your ideas with us. If someone is listening to this and they want to follow along with your journey and or reach you, where is the best place to do that?
I don't do social media except for LinkedIn because I work, of course. And it's Jorge Arbesú-Cardona. Cardona is Latinos. We have 4 names most of the time. You have a first name, a second name, a middle name, which your parents will use when you're messing up. And then we have our father's name and our mother's name. And I always use my mother's name even though it's not the legal way to do it, but because of course I want to honor my mother. So Jorge Arbesú-Cardona on LinkedIn, and happy to meet up people. It's fine.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Anytime.
Thank you so much for joining this episode of Change here from New York at the Mastercard offices. It was so great having you here today. Can't wait to see you the next time on Changed.